everybody, it's Mrs. Callaghan. How are you? I miss you all so much. I've been thinking of you all, and I hope that you're finding ways to keep yourselves busy during this time when we can't be in school. I know here at my house, we've been keeping plenty busy. As you can see, we've been doing lots of things to keep our minds active. We've been doing in the top left-hand corner, those are my two kiddos, and we've been doing the lunch doodles with Mo Willems. Every day, if you haven't seen it already, Mo Willems, who's the author of the Elephant and Piggy books and the Pigeon books and lots of other cool books, he's doing a YouTube video 1 o'clock every day, so you can kind of eat your lunch along with Mo, and he's teaching you different things about how to make a book and how he's drawn all of his pictures, and he's even teaching how to draw some of the characters in his book and other really cool ways to illustrate things. My kids have been really loving that. We've also been doing some cutting practice and some MCAS practice and just finding ways to make sure we keep our brains working and keep our minds active, even though we can't be in school right now. And we've been stopping and having time for some virtual field trips. So just because we can't go to some places, a lot of places have been doing some live webcams or different kinds of videos. I know one of our favorites this week has been the Monterey Bay Aquarium. They have some live cameras on a bunch of their animals. They're out in California, and the one that we've been loving is the sea otters. And the other day we happened to catch them during a feeding, and they were feeding the sea otters, and they were teaching them all sorts of tricks. It's been really cool. So there's lots of cool things out there for you to check out. I know your teachers have been reaching out to you and sending you some ideas of things that you can do to keep yourselves busy during this time. The most important thing to remember is that we're all thinking of each other. We all miss you very much, and we hope that you're staying super healthy and super busy. So speaking of staying super busy, even though we can't be together, it doesn't mean that I can't read to you. So I thought it might be nice to share some of my most favorite books with you. The one I'm going to start with has been my favorite since I was a little kid. Some of you may have read it before, or perhaps you've seen the movie. And if you have seen the movie, maybe keep track in your mind as I read ways that this book is different from its movie partner, because these two, they're very, very different, as you'll see. So this is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It's written by Judy Barrett, and the pictures are drawn by Ron Barrett. And as I'm reading that, I'm wondering, perhaps they're related because they share a last name. Well, let's see what this book is all about. Here we go. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we each could eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air headed toward the kitchen ceiling and landed right on Henry. Yikes, take a look at his face. How do you think he feels about that pancake on his head? After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That night, touched off by the Pancake Incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall-tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge, bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. What a silly town name. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. Doesn't sound much different than Franklin. We have a lot more people than 300, but otherwise it sounds pretty normal. I wonder what's different. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was the weather. It came 3 times a day at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. I'm thinking about the name of the town, Chew and Swallow. Think about that name. Think about how it might relate to how life is in Chew and Swallow. What do you think? Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain. It never snowed snow. And it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. Look at those hamburgers. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny-side eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast. And most of the time, it rained milk afterward. This page kind of has me thinking, I know my kiddos are picky eaters, and they probably wouldn't eat any of those things that just rained down for breakfast. If you're a picky eater, what do you think you would do? How would you feel if you had to eat whatever the weather served you? For lunch one day, frankfurters, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. What do you notice about this restaurant? Do you see what it's missing? It doesn't have a roof. That way food can rain right in and people can catch it on their plates. How silly is that? Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by a gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned up after every meal and fed all of the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil will be richer for people's flower gardens. I've never seen a truck like that, have you? Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. Take a look at that newspaper. The headline says, "Spaghetti ties up town. Record-breaking pasta fall causes chaos. Traffic snarled on Lower Intestine Street." Uh-oh. One day, there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day, there was only broccoli, all overcooked. Look at those people's faces. They don't look super happy about their soggy broccoli, huh? And the next day, there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. That's poor someone's birthday. Can you imagine if you had to have Brussels sprouts with peanut butter and mayonnaise on your birthday? Oh, how would you feel? Do you think your feelings would match the faces of the kiddos at that birthday party? I know mine would. Another day, there was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. Oh no. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of the weight, so they had to close the school. Oh, it's kind of like us right now. They all want to go to school, but they can't. We must know how they feel, right? Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomachache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. Take a minute, look at this picture. Look at all the silly things that have gotten swept up by the tornado. I think I feel worst for the kid brushing his teeth. Look at in the top left-hand corner, his toothpaste is being blown away. Or perhaps the man in the bath, he doesn't even seem to notice. Yikes! The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. Look at this one. There's a lot of silly things happening on this page, too. Those giant donuts look delicious. Do you notice at the bottom of the page, there are some letters that are floating in an alphabet soup? Can you see them? All the way down here. Oh, hopefully that doesn't cover it. You can see the letters right here. Oops. L-O-O-K-O-U-T. Look out! You see a lot of other silly things? Find one thing that you think is the silliest and tell somebody nearby what you see. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. There's lots more silly things on this page. Get the poor man under a hamburger. This lady has a pickle in her house. My goodness. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread, sandwich style, with peanut butter. Took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on the rafts for a new land. Those are the craziest boats I've ever seen. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kiss. The next morning we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. The end. So do you remember at the beginning of the book I told you that this was one of my most favorite books since I was really little? Well, what I didn't tell you is that this copy of the book was given to me when I was just 4 years old, and here's the proof. Are you ready? Do you see where it says this book belongs to? And underneath it says, Love, Jenny. Well, Jenny is my name, and that's my handwriting when I was about 4 years old. So this book is very old. I've had it for a very long time, and that's why I decided to share it with you. I hope you enjoyed listening to my story. I hope you're finding ways to keep yourselves busy and active and thinking and learning. I hope you're spending lots of times with some of your favorite books. And I hope you join me again. The next book I'm going to read to you is another one of my favorites, but it's a new favorite. Many of you probably know The Day the Crayons Quit, but have you read The Day the Crayons Came Home? Well, if you have or you haven't, join me next time and I'll share it with you. Until then, keep yourselves learning and busy. Know that we are all thinking of you. We miss you very, very much. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. Okay, done.